painted this show in 2016, more or less sequestered in your Roman studio. I'd call it your monastic period.
Well, the studio was behind a church in an old one-car garage, and there were no windows, and I lived above it, which was beautiful. I was right where Caravaggio had his studio near Piazza Navona, and there were several churches with Caravaggios. So I would paint in the morning and then go look at Caravaggios at lunch. You would enter into this beautiful, quiet, chosen space, the Contarelli Chapel, which was about the same size as my studio. And I started standing in front of these paintings and seeing their power. And then I would have to return to my studio and work.
But painting in a studio without any windows is a little bit like painting in a cave. What was it like actually working there?
And it became very focused and very intense. And I was trying to harness the power of all that art that was around me. It was everywhere. It was in the street, it was in the fountains, it was in
the churches.
But the churches in Rome are a totally other experience. Now, I love the grandeur of the Baroque.
I can definitely see that in your work. The way you have a kind of bacchanalia, fiery reds and the screaming yellows, and everything is just drenched in emotion.
Well, the studio did turn into a cauldron, especially in August.
It's so alchemical. And while you're mixing up the medicine, you're also hurling yourself out this window, like Yves Klein, or going over the canyon with Thelma and Louise.
Well, I do have to throw myself off a cliff at a certain point in every painting. Because when I do that, and all of a sudden it happens, it's a real battle. I really don't plan these. I see them.
It sounds dangerous, but it also sounds right. If love is a battlefield, then the eyes and the brain are the erogenous combat zone. And always in your work, there's the passion. There's the erotic. It's eros. And eros is loving psyche, the soul in the dark. And who are Eros's parents? The Roman version is Mars, the god of war, and Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Their union, so we've got birth, we've got death and rebirth.
Well, sex and death are the ultimate in letting go, right? One thing that I found this time while I was in Italy is that there are three sections in a painting. There's heaven, which is usually light and bright and airy and weightless and lit and something that we can't have, but we can have an idea of. And then there's earth. And then there's hell. And hell is gravity. And it's always reaching up to pull us down into it. And here we are, stuck in the middle. Look at Bernini and how he dealt with gravity in his work. You see the pull of the weight of the earth and the quest of the spiritual in stone. But in my painting, I deal with this in-between space by clawing my way through it. I'm struggling somewhere between heaven and hell, in the middle. And paint is dirt, and it's messy, goopy, and drippy, and when you're working, at some point, it isn't even paint anymore. It turns into space or body, or it transforms into this weird material. And so you're sitting there trying to survive as a human being. And what's so crazy is that you don't know how you're going to win that struggle. But the one thing I know is that there are certain things I need in a painting. And I know when it happens. So I think it has to be that complex. You can go from heaven to hell in 6 feet.
You know, you've wanted to defy gravity ever since you were a teenager when you were studying ballet. That has always set you apart from any other painter that I know. That discipline, that perfection that you had to have in your body, that you had to bring to the stage. You still want to let your audience feel like, hey, you can fly. But now it's in your paintings.
And you have to make it look easy. So, in Italy, I spent a lot of time looking at ceilings. They're timeless, endless space that's contained in a physical dome. And if you lay down and you look up, you get this sense of weightlessness. Pollock found that by laying his canvas on the floor and dancing around it as he painted. Well, I spin my canvases around on the wall until I find that weightlessness in the painting. Even though it's the physicality of the paint that fights to reestablish gravity.
You know, there's another paradox in your paintings, and that's how you work with light.
I had to find out how to make something lit from the inside.
I'd call your version the subliminal sublime. It is not weather. The awe it produces comes from this radical reflection of something within you.
Well, I think the beauty of my color balances the muscularity of my mark. And this contradiction frees me to be as bloody and as pretty as I need to be, rising, floating, and falling at the same time.